we can provide through on that front would be our support trainings, workshops, and technical assistance in the areas of seafood safety, specifically seafood HACCP and compliance with current federal and state regulations, especially with regard to sanitation monitoring, and record keeping, which are all requirements within those HACCP food safety regulations. Good manufacturing practices, which is a requirement for all food processing facilities, regardless of the type of commodity you're working with. Also assessed and assistance with seafood processing, quality, sustainability, and nutrition. And so these are all things and topics that we can work with you on throughout the state. Over the past couple of years, we've created a variety of resources, all of which are going to be available on the back decks as hard copies, but they're also available for free online on our websites. For those interested in processing seafood, bringing products to market, we have a series of seafood processing and marketing resources or guides. 3 of those are regulatory guides focused in on the 3 major sectors. Then there are about 8 supplemental guides focusing in on some of those topics that you see there in, or the requirements within those regulatory guides to provide additional clarity on what is expected of you to legally and safely bring product to market. Similarly, there's been a lot of interest in seaweed production across Long Island and throughout New York State. And we worked with some of those emerging industries as well as our state agencies over the last year to develop similar resources specifically for our seaweed industry to help provide clarity on how you process and bring those products to market safely in the state. And those are also, again, available on the back tables, but also available online, and they're all free for any use. Seafood marketing has been a challenge identified by many of our stakeholders over the years. Being able to market your product, brand your product can be burdensome, can be expensive. So we have created a series of seafood marketing resources, again, freely available online and fully customizable. So these resources you see here, you have the option of adding QR codes as well as company logos on the front to brand the product your own. And on the back, you can fill out information on where it's been harvested from, how it's been harvested, sustainability aspects of those products. And that can be used by producers, fishermen, farmers to educate buyers on the products and how they're being produced and sustained. Can also be a great resource for chefs to educate their patrons on the products that they're sourcing and selling in their establishments. Again, all available online for you to fully customize their fillable PDFs. And if you want to learn more about any of these, please feel free to ask me later on during our networking session. Also, as you know, seafood HACCP, there are training requirements associated with that. You must be trained to implement through these food safety plans. Currently, we have some limited spots available for free seafood HACCP trainings for any New York producers who are interested in doing that. If you are interested, please see me and we can get you signed up and get you your HACCP training certificates. Lastly, I just want to kind of quickly introduce and overview this week's events. So I know we are at the last of the 3 events, but all of our events were available digitally and were recorded, so they will be available on the New York Sea Grant website after this. So if something piques your interest and you didn't get to participate, you will be able to view those digitally after today. We will be sending a follow-up email to all registered participants to access those on the website. On Tuesday event was up in Ithaca at Cornell University, and it focused on innovations in fish feed for aquaculture. So our upstate industry is primarily our pond or land-based aquaculture facilities, and finding alternative proteins to create a more sustainable feeds for those businesses is a priority. And so we focused on that and looked at some of the research being done at Cornell and some of the industry operating upstate, looking into alternative feeds, primarily plant-based and insect-based for those feeds. Thursday the 9th, yesterday, we were up at the Culinary Institute in Hyde Park, where we focused on innovations in value-added seafood processing. So some of the different processing operations happening across the state, focusing on canned seafood, smoked seafood. We had some new innovations in cell-based seafood, some new things that are coming down the line, some based in New York, some interested in being based in New York. So you can learn more about that through our link after today when we send that to you. But today we're focused on innovations in our New York fishing industry as well as marketing, right? And so I'd like to pass the podium over to Kristen, and she's going to be our host today and walk us through today's events.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Hi, everybody. I am Kristen Gerbino. I am a fisheries specialist here at Cornell Cooperative Extension. and welcome to our third session of the 7th Annual New York Seafood Summit. I'll be your co-host for today's session. For those of you who are not familiar with Cornell Cooperative Extension, we serve the county with our agriculture, marine, community education, and 4-H youth development programs. We are educators, researchers, specialists, and volunteers dedicated to our mission of preserving our county's vast heritage, protecting our ecosystems, supporting families, and providing our youth with opportunities for community service and research-based education in science, technology, engineering, and math. To accomplish our mission, we collaborate with researchers, all levels of government, Cornell University, nonprofits, and community groups to bring innovative research programs and services to Suffolk County. You can go to CCE's website at ccesuffolk.org to learn more about our organization. So here at Cornell, I am part of the fisheries team, and the fisheries team here works closely with Long Island's fishing industry members on a number of innovative fisheries research projects, marine debris removal projects, trawl surveys, technology transfer, and local seafood marketing efforts, including our Choose Local Fish initiative, which is aimed at raising awareness and increasing demand for fresh, indigenous, sustainable, and healthy seafood. These important activities help support our commercial fishing communities, increase demand for local seafood, create markets, increase profits for fishermen, and support the overall economic viability of fishing communities and Long Island seafood businesses. So today we have, aside from myself, we have Scott Curatolo-Wagaman, who is here. He is the leader of our fisheries team, and Tara McClintock, who is a fisheries specialist here as well, and they have both been a part of our planning team for the New York Seafood Summit, so thank you for all your help. Our executive director, Vanessa Lockle, unfortunately couldn't be here today. And then we have other members of our fisheries team here today, most of whom you'll be seeing at different presentations that we're giving throughout the day. So welcome, everybody. This year's summit is focused on innovations in seafood. In today's session, we'll be talking about innovations in seafood harvesting, research, and marketing. For the first part of the day, CCE fisheries specialists will be talking about 3 innovative research projects in the field of conservation gear technology, which is helping the commercial fishing industry of Long Island to fish smarter and not harder. Second, we'll be talking about innovations in seafood marketing from North Fork seafood owner and fisherman Jermaine Owens, who is on his way right now. And we'll hear about how he successfully adapted his fish business to become wildly successful. Then we'll hear from CCE fisheries specialist Amanda Dowman on an innovative seafood marketing project geared towards increasing consumer awareness and domestic demand for monkfish in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region. And then we'll get to hear from New York's commercial fishermen about their innovative harvesting methods and technology implemented to efficiently catch their target species while avoiding catching anything they don't want to catch, whether that's juvenile fish, undersized fish, fish above the trip limit, fish which would trigger accountability measures and closures, protected species, and just to generally reduce bycatch. So these fishermen employ innovations in gear, electronics, their vessels, safety equipment, and so on, every day as they work hard on the water to bring us fresh, healthy, sustainable seafood. And lastly, we'll have a networking session with New York Sea Grant, the Cornell fisheries team, the local legislators that we have in attendance, and our presenters. So this will be an opportunity for all of us to get to know each other and talk about our work and businesses, share resources, and highlight opportunities to work together. We'll set up tables. We have tables set up in the back with all of these resources, and we'll be able to discuss any of our research projects. During the networking session around 3 o'clock, you'll get to enjoy some delicious monkfish chowder that was prepared by Gray Bar Seafood in Copeg. And also we will have oysters from Great Gun Shellfish coming soon. So welcome everybody, and let's get started with our opening remarks. Back to you, Mike.
All right, thanks, Kristen. So I'm very excited to be up here to introduce and welcome our state and county legislatures who are able to join us here today to provide some opening remarks for this year's Seafood Summit. So we'll start off with Assemblyman Fred Thiel, who wants to come on up. Get this out of the way.
Thank you. Go around this way. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be here today. It's certainly my pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to give some remarks. I see some of my fellow government colleagues here from the county and the state, and I'm sure they'll have the opportunity also to say a few words. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to both Sea Grant and Cornell Cooperative Extension. Incredible resource, whether it is for our fishing industry, our agricultural industry, certainly with Cornell Cooperative Extension, but tremendous resources. And it's just always a pleasure to work, together for our mutual efforts to try to really, promote our fishing industry, promote the seafood industry. And, I've been at this a long time, and I've had the chance to make many relationships. And I see John Scotty in the back, the only person in this room who may be almost as old as I am. But, one of the first things I did when I got involved with government, one of the first people I met was John Scotty and Cornell Cooperative Extension. And that was at the time when Cornell helped to get the funding that was necessary and to put all together with the county and the town of Southampton to build the Shinnecock Fishing Pier. That's how long ago, and that's a fishing pier now that we should be talking about. Needs additional resources now and needs to be brought up to date. But that's how long I go back. It's good to see John, and it reminds me of how I got started in government. And one of the very first projects that I ever worked on was the fishing pier in Shinnecock, and that was my first involvement with the commercial fishing industry and seafood. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the company Albany's role in this, and I know that Senator Palumbo will probably also say a few words. It's always better to go first because it's tough to follow, and everything has been said, but not everybody has said it. So going first is a little bit of an advantage. And I just want to talk about the state budget a little bit, because that is what we are right in the middle of now. And what happens in Albany and what happens with the state budget has certainly, a substantial impact on the seafood industry. And, I'm just going to talk about really three aspects of that budget. Where we are right now is that the governor presents her budget back in January. During the month of February, we hold public hearings on the budget. And we are just about getting to the point now where the Assembly will do its version of the budget. The Senate does its version. If one budget is good, three must be better. So we'll have the three different budget proposals, and then the last 2 weeks of March, we attempt to harmonize the differences and come up hopefully with a budget by April 1st. We've been much better at that in the last decade or so, in trying to meet that deadline, or at least being close to it. But the three things in the budget I wanted to talk about, and first and foremost is to make sure that the resources I just talked about, Sea Grant, Cornell Cooperative Extension, they get funding from the state of New York. And I've met with Sea Grant, met with Cornell already this year in my Albany office, understood what their priorities are. And I think starting out, actually, the governor's budget proposal was pretty fair to both Sea Grant and Cornell Cooperative Extension. But we can always do better. And we're hoping that, working together with my colleagues in the Senate, and we'll come up with a final budget that hopefully can improve a little bit about the funding that we're providing for Sea Grant and for Cornell Cooperative Extension. You know, secondly, is water quality. Don't have good water quality, you don't have seafood. And that has really been, I think, one of the biggest issues that we have tried to work on. You know, the county executive has said that nitrogen is public enemy number one, and reversing the declining water quality in Suffolk has been a top priority. And, you know, that I think certainly is the case. And, you know, I grew up in Sag Harbor. You know, the number of places that were areas that are closed to shell fishing, areas that you can't use because of water quality. You know, it has increased over the years. We're making some progress, but we need to do so much more. And, you know, in this year's budget, you know, water quality finds itself in a number of different programs in the state budget. You know, the Environmental Protection Fund, fully funded at $400 million. That certainly is a funding source for water quality. I should point out that we're looking to increase the state funding for the Peconic Estuary Program. Last year, they got $450,000 for the estuary program. I am showing my age. It's actually the Peconic Estuary Partnership now. But, you know, the assembly bill that we're going to pass on Monday, our one House budget bill, is going to increase that amount to $900,000. We're hoping that we can get that into the final budget. You know, we have for the last 5 or 6 years, we've had a water quality infrastructure program where we provide $500 million for water quality infrastructure. We're looking to continue that. And of course, all of you voted on the Bond Act last year, the $4.2 billion Bond Act. We need to start getting that money out the door. Water quality funding, certainly important there. And there's an initiative that we're working on with Suffolk County to provide a recurring source of revenue for water quality. The county is requesting, subject to mandatory referendum, an 1/8% increase. The county executive is requesting, let me be careful about that, is requesting that funding that would be devoted to water quality, particularly things such as IA systems to change the infrastructure here. So in our budget, there's a major focus on water quality. We want to provide the funding and the resources to our county and our towns that are necessary, not just we can't just maintain water quality. We have to reverse the trends that we've had in water quality. And then the last part of the budget I just wanted to talk a little bit about is economic development. And when it comes to the seafood industry, you know, to me, the two key parts of economic development and trying to get those economic development dollars back here to Long Island is, one, to provide the necessary infrastructure that you need. I mentioned the Shinnecock Fishing Pier. I know the town of Southampton is certainly looking at funding, and there's been requests for funding to really kind of upgrade the Shinnecock Fishing Pier. That certainly is a priority. There's always talk about the need to be able to process, to do more processing here for marketing. I think those are things we should be looking at as far as economic development. And then, of course, promotion. You know, we're competing with other states. We're competing with other states in this region and across the country. New York needs to be promoting its seafood industry. We've had some initiatives in that regard. That's something that we need to build upon. The last thing I just want to talk about just a little bit is that when the budget's done, we get down to doing legislation. And really the two priorities legislatively that I have this year, working with Senator Palumbo, one is with regard to kelp. We, you know, I saw earlier in the presentation talking about seafood, and actually the legislation that we've done is seafood, but a lot of attention is on kelp. But 2 years ago, we passed a bill that for the Peconic Gardeners system allowed the county, you know, the county has jurisdiction over the state bottomlands and administers them. We've had the shellfish leasing program for more than 10 years now, because we just finished that 10-year review. But 2 years ago, we passed a law that allowed for permitting for seafood or for seaweed also. And, you know, the county will need to take the steps to certainly to implement that program. Last year, because there were so many requests outside of the Peconic Gardener system to allow state lands to also be used for kelp, we put in a bill that would have expanded it to all state lands in the Marine District. The governor vetoed that bill, I think incorrectly vetoed that bill. The veto message said that it was premature, that we should wait and see what happens into the Peconic Gardener system first. I would take an opposite view of that. It's not premature. In fact, we're behind. We're behind Connecticut. We're behind Maine. We're behind other states when it comes to seaweed and seaweed production, and that we need to really accelerate what we're doing. So we're working with all of the stakeholders. We're trying to put together a bill and get the governor to reconsider this year, and that's certainly something that will be on the agenda once the budget passes. And the last thing that we need to get back up and running is that before the pandemic, a lot of work was done with regard to the commercial fishing licensing structure, which is one of the most arcane and outdated and disincentives to growing the commercial fishing industry. The inability to, you know, the issues with regard to licensing transfers, and, you know, there's just some provisions in there that just hinder the commercial fishing industry. A whole report was done, public hearings were held, then the pandemic happened. We need to get back to that this year and look at things we can do to change commercial fishing licensing requirements that help to grow this industry. We need to get young people, need to get new people involved in this industry, and we need to return it to and create opportunity. And one part of that, I think, is with regard to changing some of the provisions in the licensing. So those are some of the things that we're looking at in Albany and that we're working on to try to help the industry. I always appreciate having the opportunity every year to meet not just with Sea Grant and Cornell Cooperative Extension, but with those of you that are directly engaged on the water in this industry, and to hear what your priorities are. And I certainly look forward to doing that again this year. So thank you for having me. And I probably took up too much time because there's so many politicians here. We don't want to overtake the time, but thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure.
Next to speak with our state, Senator Palumbo, would you like to commence opening remarks?
Terrific. Thank you for having me. To use a line from Assemblyman Thiel, that, you know, when someone speaks before you and a lot of people are very uncomfortable even speaking publicly, and, you know, death and other things that scare you. For us, if we're not allowed to speak, that's what makes us upset. So of course, I've been able to whittle it down now to about a half an hour because Fred said so much. But seriously, thank you to Sea Grant, Cornell Cooperative for having us. This is a way of life out on the East End. I mean, Assemblyman Thiel's in Sag Harbor. I live in Southold. I grew up in Patchogue, and not just recreationally, obviously. So this is something that, in broad strokes, because a lot of it was mentioned, that we absolutely support the industry for those of us that live out here. I have friends from upstate, obviously we're statewide, that are shocked at the agricultural nature of Suffolk County. I think we're #1 in production, Fred, right? It's statewide by value of food and agriculture and aquaculture production. So it's absolutely a way of life. And what Cornell Cooperative has done over the years is just, it's really priceless what they have been able to do. They're such an invaluable resource, whether it's involving farming and different types of pest control and molds and issues along those lines. So it's really great. And it's something that I think we were all personally affected by, those of us here. And as I said, I grew up in Patchogue on the Great South Bay, clamming and fishing with Timmy Froelic's dad over there, and his cousin, and clamming. And it's not just recreationally, though. Those are friends who have been in the business, who, you know, made a living and put food on the table. on our waterways and you know, in their version of harvesting and farming. So I just want to say thank you, folks, for doing what you do. We absolutely will continue to support you and try and get as much funding, because that's what it comes down to from our end, as we can, to continue your great work. And of course, the help to all these folks. And this sort of summit and innovation and marketing is a home run. So thanks for giving me a few minutes to speak. It's good to see you all, and thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Our next legislative star anchor, would you like to provide any remarks?
Behind here. I just want to thank everybody for coming out here today. You know, I've worked very closely with both Cornell Extension and Sea Grant, and you guys have been amazing. But I just wanted to bring a really important point as far as how important it is to have relationships with government. We need to hear from the industry. We need to hear from fishermen, lobstermen, the residents, so we can make sure we can protect those entities that are important to us. I worked with Kathleen Fallon from Sea Grant on marine debris education, teaching our kids how important it is that we take care of our environment, that we take care of the ocean. Let's see, Cornell Extension, it was an honor to work with you guys to do a lobster removal project. So we sent out a boat, we worked with the local fishermen, and we got those lobster traps out. I read an article, it's a little scary. Close to 1 million lobster traps are still out in Long Island Sound, and we need to get those traps out. You know, the creatures are getting stuck inside, which is, I think, creating limits for our seafood industry. If we could clean up the bottom of the Long Island Sound, just think how much more productive our fishing industry could be. So I put some calls in. I see Fred, we spoke yesterday about this, working with both Cornell Extension and Sea Grant and the DEC. I think you guys are probably here somewhere, but what's, again, what most important is to work with the folks that are out there on the water so we can protect that. So it's my pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to hearing your presentations. Scott, again, thank you so much for working together with a lot of the projects that I've had. And again, you know, I have my little anchor earrings on to remind you that I'm a sea girl. You know, I was raised in Florida and we were out on the water a lot. I'm here on Long Island, and I feel very, I feel that one of the most important goals that I can do as a legislator is make sure I put a lot of attention into our ocean, into our waters. And just one quick little mention. So on the side, this isn't government related, I'm looking at Scott, I just brought one of my books. I wrote a children's book about ocean pollution, below the ocean, keeping our sea friends safe, about what we can do in teaching our children, how we can be better environmental stewards. So again, thank you for everyone being here, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
It's actually across the
If I could first, Mike and Chris, give you a proclamation. One for Cornell, one for Sea Grant. It's because the work that you do does support an industry, and I'm in the agricultural industry, and I know there's a lot of partners in government that support agriculture. And it's hard when you're working every day to take the time to see the resources that are there to help you. And to Sarah's point, to reach out to the people in government and say, hey, this is a problem, or thank you. Either way, it's fine. But otherwise, you're not going to get the change that's going to help your business and it's going to help your industry. So I just want to thank you. Thank you so much. Here's a proclamation for Cornell. And here's one for Sea Grant.
Thank you so much.
Because your work should be recognized. So when I was I kind of came up in the 80s, and in 1985, the brown tide killed all the scallops out here, and it really devastated what was not only just an industry, but a lifestyle.
coming from the farm. A lot of people farmed, and then in the wintertime, they either scratch clams or dredge for some oysters, but also scallops all winter long. And that's how people lived. And it was just the culture. When all the scallops died because of brown tide, it really raised the alarm bells out here, because it really kind of recognized that the environment is the economy out here. So in response to that, people tried to, and I know Sea Grant and Cornell Cooperative Extension were trying to help. What caused the brown tide? What was the straw that broke the camel's back there that killed all the scallops and really devastated the community? And if you look at, so we looked first towards water quality and how we could improve it. And it really started us on a road of trying to remediate stormwater. And whoever's in the shellfish business knows that the waters need to be certified by New York State in order to harvest shellfish or raise shellfish. And so the goal there was to reduce pathogens in the water. It also, a side goal of doing all the road runoff work was that you do reduce sediment and nutrients, and you also recharge all that fresh water into the aquifer, which is really important on the North Fork. So it's been decades, but as a result of all that work, and New York State DOT was a good partner, Suffolk County DPW was a good partner, and the town was a good partner of doing a lot of road work. And as a result, opening up areas to shell fishing. You know, Heshimamic went from a rainfall-based opening to a seasonal opening. Wickham Creek and Cutchogue opening up another 13 acres for shell fishing. Mattatuck Inlet, another 50 acres. And now there's a good natural oyster set there because so much road work was done. So there's a lot of positives that came out of that brown tide in the beginning, because people realized, hey, this is our community and this is our economy. So to support government programs to improve water quality, and I don't know if Fred said it or Anthony Palumbo said it about the county's wastewater treatment, trying to improve wastewater treatment. You think of how many homes ring the creeks and bays out here, and all that septic waste, and not only what we put into the groundwater, but you think of all the personal care products, all the pharmaceuticals that pass through us that go into the groundwater directly into the creek. And so it's really important to make sure that government officials know, spend the money on water quality improvements. Cornell did a great job on their restoring with Dr. Steve Tettelbach, restoring the scallop population, and they're still struggling now with issues with the adult scallops, but all that kind of work pays off, and it helps really all of us. So thank you to Sea Grant, thanks to Cornell for doing all that work.
All right, thank you, Legislator Prusky. Thank you to all our legislative reps. I believe that was everybody. So if I missed someone, please do stand up. All right, we thank you all for joining us today. We hope you can stick around for our networking session later. We'll be having some local monkfish and some local oysters, and you'll have opportunity to engage and interact. And I'll pass the mic over to Kristen now, who can take us through the rest of today's talks.
Okay, let's get into the innovations in fisheries research conducted here by CCE fisheries team. CCE has been collaborating with the commercial fishing industry on Long Island in a number of innovative conservation gear technology projects to help fishermen fish smarter and not harder. That means designing and testing gear modifications to reduce bycatch of fish and marine mammals, help avoid fishery closures, or help rebuild species and stocks that may be overfished. These designs were created with fish behavior and physiology in mind to figure out how they can be eliminated from fishing gear. In this unique arrangement, the fishermen come to us with the ideas that they would like to see tested, and Cornell seeks out the funding to make that happen. We've been doing this for many years very successfully, and these projects end up being a win-win for both the fishermen and the fisheries resource. So we have our first talk today will be about a project implemented a few years ago by CCE, which was an innovative net design added to a trawl net, which was a large mesh belly panel designed to reduce bycatch. Scott Curatolo-Wagman is here today to tell you all about this innovative project and the benefits to the fishing industry.
Thank you, Kristen. All right, and actually, I want to thank everyone for coming. I mean, this is such a great turnout that we have here. And the great thing is that it's not just one representative stakeholder. There's a lot of people here coming from different angles about seafood and commercial fishing. This is really great to see. So yeah, we're going to talk about a large mesh belly panel project that we did. It was actually 2 different grants that we did. And unfortunately, because I'm very lazy and I procrastinate, I had to adapt a former one that a presentation we did for the New England Fishery Management Council. So this title here, the Advancing Bycatch Reduction Technology in New England Small Mesh Multi-Species Fisheries Outreach and Technology Transfer of the Large Mesh Belly Panel, is much easier if we just say, how do you keep the fish that make you money, getting rid of the fish that won't make you money by making bigger holes in a net? All right, so large mesh belly panel is what we went with. So for this project, essentially it was keyed around accountability measures. So when people are going for a target species, sometimes the regulations have things in there that if you catch a certain bycatch of other species, it can shut you down. So in this case, we were looking at not catching window pane and yellow pane flounder, but we did want to keep squid in the net. So we had all these different objectives. Again, taking from another one where it's, we want to investigate a conservation gear, blah, 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 blah. That's way too much. Essentially, it's let's see if we can use a large mesh belly panel in the squid fishery and see if we can help the fishermen not catch the yellowtail and window pane flounder. The second objective we had was these nets can be expensive and fishermen may not have the money to switch over to these new nets. How can we help them? Again, think of it, you got a car and let's say, you might have snow tires, but not everyone has snow tires. But if the government required you to have snow tires, you may not have enough money to get the snow tires this year. So taking that, how can we help them? So with the resource, again, CCE is uniquely qualified to bridge the gap between regulators, the fishing industry, and management. And everyone's ultimate goal is to protect the resource. And then finally, we wanted these nets to be constructed by gear manufacturers who knew what they were doing, and then create a voucher program so that the nets can be affordable for the fishermen. So this was an adaptation for trawl gear. This is just a simple little picture for those who are not familiar with trawl. Key thing here is if you look there, the trawl, that's kind of a uniform mesh size. For this though, this is the smart large mesh belly panel. So essentially it's creating kind of larger holes there. Those larger holes are essentially 3 knots deep, about an 8 foot of large mesh that's removed. And there's a video here that kind of goes into need to be up. I'm not hearing anything. All right, technical difficulties. There we go. Good.
Belly panel. In this net here, this webbing here, real size is like a 4 3/4 inch mesh, about that big, something like that. It's 4 times that size. So this area here is where we would put the large mesh belly panel. You can see any fish that come up over in this situation, any fish that come up will lie on that and go back. Whereas if I make these holes, so instead of having this 20 meshes here, we have like 2 of the large mesh belly panel. You can see where the flatfish now would come up and they would have an opportunity to get out through that.
Right. So that is the functional demonstration of what it is. We put it to work though in some different fisheries. The first one we tested in was a whiting fishery to exclude different flatfish like flounders, and that achieved a 75% reduction. We went then to the small mesh fisheries of southern New England to exclude winter flounder, and we saw about an 88% reduction. And then finally, we tested it in the smallmouth scup fishery for window pane and achieved about a 48%. So grant ends, we submit all the final reports. New England Fishery Management Council and other councils and commissions take a look at it, and they see that this is actually probably a good idea. So essentially what it did is it went up and it became a gear that could be used when these accountability measures kicked in. So that was a big kind of win for us in the fishing industry, that we're able to do this testing and to have it become an approved gear. So the official rules that, you can see it there, proposed selective gear would reduce bycatch of groundfish species while allowing the target fisheries to continue operating when selective trawl gear is required. And again, that's talking about the accountability measures. But that was step one. Step two, though, is how do we get this to the fishermen? So in previous studies, we did a project with the Commercial Fisheries Research Foundation, the CFRF, up in Rhode Island, where we had a gear trials program where for that we had things like a large mesh belly panel and a 12-inch drop chain to, again, help the fishing industry kind of adapt to these different bycatch measures. So again, with that one, we were able to coordinate a gear delivery system and do a voucher program. So that's what we did with this one. So the second part of this one was getting another grant where we reached out to industry, let them know that this was something that was now an approved gear for accountability measures when they kicked in, and that we had this voucher program that could be used by them. So fishermen applied for vouchers. We had 25 of them. And it was a very simple application process. You just need the owner, the vessel, your federal permit. We coordinated with the two different gear manufacturers up north, Radars and Superior Trawl. And then the fishermen used these vouchers to then get the large mesh belly panel. We also had a survey asking them how it was working out. Good news, bad news, we haven't gotten really any surveys. The good news is because those accountability measures have not kicked in, so they've not had the need to use that large mesh belly panel yet. But for those 25 fishermen who do have that voucher and have that net, they can now use that net. So they don't have to worry about it if and when those accountability measures do come in. So that is the really quick and dirty of the large mesh belly panel. Any quick questions? Not. Yes. Thank you.
Oh, you have a question?
Were there any reductions in target species?
There were some, but not enough that it was, unfortunately, again, that technical one did have those numbers in there. Because, we do all sorts of statistical analysis to make sure that, that reduction we're seeing in the bycatch makes sense, that you're still obviously keeping it for the target species. So I don't remember what it was, but it was a pretty good, it was a high number. Yes.
How do you know? How do you sell that to us? And how do you know that the really small scoopers just didn't get in there, or how do you physically know that this is good?
We did trials with them. They were all sea trials.
No, we worked with both at the mountain. We were on, the Caitlin Marie, the Perception, the Contos. We did a few years of this with multiple boats side by side, and you showed that the reduction in target species was minimal. I want to tell you that it was probably under 5%, but the reduction in the plastic bycatch that would trigger these accountability measures was substantial and significant. That's why it went through peer review and it was accepted when the I know that you guys don't experience it, the yellowtail, it reaches a certain amount of harvest or bycatch levels, it will close down the whiting fishery. And this is an alternative for the industry to keep on fishing with this large red belly panel. Along with the rope net. This is along the same concept of a rope net, but for guys that don't want to go spending, $30,000 on a rope net,
they can put this panel in and we paid for it and we gave them the panel. So that's along the lines of that.
So you're basically doing it with boats that don't have that in it, don't have.
Right, we've got the regular
Side
box
by
and,
side and.
yes, that's what we did. Yes,
Yes.
and we went on a twin pole, out of Rhode Island that towed 2 nets at once. We did multiple, probably
I would say it
almost
was-
5 years worth of survey on this.
So are the fishermen happy with it, once they did it?
Yes,
Do they
yes.
really cast it out?
They do like it, yeah. It gets rid of skates and dogs. It really cleans up the catch so that they don't have to, spend time, sorting through that, and also keeps the quality of the target species squid in better condition.
All right, thank you, everybody. We do have to move on, but we noticed that legislator Rich Burt has joined us. So thank you for coming. Would you like to say a few words? No. Well, thanks for being here. Okay, thank you, Scott.
Do you mind if
Sure.
Jason did come here from a long ways away.
I just want to say, I want to thank Legislator Richburg for coming. I always joke he comes from the border. He's so far west in Suffolk County. But if you see the legislators that are here, both state and county, so there are some things that government does to actually help with the ecosystem. And there's a dam, Woodhull Dam. It's a county property right across from the county center. It took 10 years, a lot of negotiation, and over $1 million. But please go and look at it, because Riverhead, there's a group in Riverhead who did the Grangeable Dam. The Grangeable Fish Ladder, right off Peconic Avenue. So all the alewives that are going up there, trying to find their true love, going up the river, get stuck at the Woodhull Dam. And if you go there in the spring, they're all pooled up in a pool about the size of this room. There's tens of thousands of fish, and they can't get further up to spawn. So the county and the state, everybody works together. Peconic Estuary Partnership. There's a beautiful, if you walk across the street from the county center, there's a beautiful fish passage and eel passage. You can see them. You can stand on the dam, see them both. It's going to be should be a big increase in bait fish. It should really help not only all the fish and all the birds and everything else. There's plans to do the one across from Snowflake on Main Street here in Riverhead. The state did the one at Edwards Avenue, and the town and the county did the one at Forge Road. So we're really trying to open up the whole river system to the alewife population again. And so that's a big benefit, but we know that these things take time, but they will have a long-term impact on the fisheries in a positive way. Well, thank you.
Okay. Okay, for our next presentation, hang on, let me just get this queued up. For our next presentation, we have CCE Fisheries Specialist Mike Bowen. He's going to talk to you about another innovative trawl net design to reduce bycatch of red hake in the squid and whiting fisheries on Long Island. This project is just started, but we're capturing some interesting video footage of fish in the net, which is an innovative component of this type of research, which allows us to visualize exactly what's happening in the net. So please come up, Mike. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. So, another new gear technology, innovative conservation gear technology, that is. But again, this is a long title, so I'm just going to call it a red hake excluder in the squid and whiting fisheries. So firstly, what's an excluder? So you can see here, it's basically a net within a net. This green mesh on the outside is that first net that all fish are funneled into. And that top picture is the inside view of that net. So the principle is based on selectivity and altering selectivity by changing the mesh size. So if your target is smaller fish like whiting and squid, they should be able to shoot the meshes and go to the outer part of the net and eventually be retained. If they're too large, like some, you can see some, I think those are cod. This was originally developed over in Europe. But like dogfish, skates, they won't be able to shoot the mesh they'll be funneled out and funneled into an escape vent and out of the net. But like I said, this net was originally designed by Greenline Fishing Gear in Denmark, in the Norway pout fishery. And they did see significant bycatch reductions in that fishery. But yes, so this works well when trying to exclude individuals of smaller size from larger individuals. So that's why we focused on the small mesh ground fishery. So mainly we focus on the whiting and the squid fishery, and the exclusion of red hake. So these two, the Atlantic longfin squid and the whiting, are commercially important species in this fishery. And red hake, in 2018, a stock assessment determined that it was overfished, with overfishing occurring. That was only in the southern stock. But then in 2020, they changed the total allowable landings from 5,000 to only 400 pounds per trip. And the idea behind this net was to avoid reaching that threshold, avoiding closures for the fishery. So we developed a net specific for those two fisheries. So that's Emerson standing in front of it in John Knight's shop in Point Judith, Superior Trawl. But now moving on to project overview and goals, we will be doing 2 at-sea research trips, whiting fishing trip during the winter, which we've already completed, and the squid trip in the summer. In each trip, we plan on doing 30 paired tows. So we're using a trouser trawl, so it's one net with 2 legs. Like its name implies, it's like a pair of pants, 2 legs. We had a control side on one. It just had an extender piece to match the added length of the excluder. And the other side was obviously the excluder. And we switched them daily on that trip to avoid any bias. And the total catch from each bag was weighed by species. And then for specifically squid, whiting, spotted hake, and red hake, we took 100 length samples for each one of those species for both bags, for each tow. And then for those of you unfamiliar with whiting, with the hake species, you have whiting on top, which is also known as silver hake, spotted hake in the middle, and red hake down there, which is also known as ling. But yeah, this was our study vessel. It's the FB Prevail, based out of Point Judith. It's a 90-foot steel stern trawler. And then our winter whiting research trip that we've already completed was done in the beginning of February of 2023. So we did 5 days of comparison tows. We completed 32 tows in total. We caught a total of 32,612.1 pounds of fish and measured a total of 10,394 squid, red hake, spotted hake, and silver hake. We also were able to attach a GoPro camera to different areas of the net and got some interesting footage, but that'll all be at the end. So here's just some preliminary data and results. So the blue bars represent the control and the orange ones represent experimental. So starting at the top left and going clockwise, we have squid, whiting, spotted hake, and red hake. And then just to summarize this, because I know it's a lot, overall, we did see a reduction in catch weight for the target species as well as the bycatch species. But the target species saw less reduction in when there was lower catch rates. But overall, the length frequency data has not been evaluated to determine if some individuals were just too large to fit through the excluder and were excluded because of that. And then also, it's still too early to determine if catch difference was significant or not. But here's just a visual of the catch comparison. So on the left, we have the control without the excluder and the experimental on the right with the excluder. So you can see a lot or almost no dogfish in the experimental bag. And then on the left, you can see tons of dogfish. We also noticed very few skates in the experimental bag. But then moving into, this is just a breakdown of catch by percentage. So it does not involve the weight of the catch. It's just what was caught and then what percentage of that. So the controls on the left-hand side, experimentals on the right-hand side. And then the 4 important ones to note are the blue for squid, orange for whiting, gray for spotted hake, and yellow for red hake. So we had a higher percentage of catch of all of our target species. The bycatch species stayed for red hake and spotted hake pretty consistent, if not a little bit more, which is interesting. But you can see a big increase of whiting by percentage, and then also sea robin for the control was a lot higher than that for the experimental. So we were also excluding some sea robin. And then finally in green is the spiny dogfish. So you can see we had, good percentage of that catch being spiny dogfish, and then very few, you could barely even see that sliver for the experimental net. But what's next? We saw the squid trip coming up in the summer. We plan on altering the ways we mounted the camera to get some better footage to see what's really going on inside of the net. Hopefully to see, how these results are coming about. But yeah, positive results may show the effectiveness of the excluder through the reduction of bycatch of red hake and other species too, such as skates and dogfish, which would result in overall cleaner catch. And plus you don't have to get spined by possibly dog or sea robins or anything else. So, but yeah, that's it. Here's a video from outside the net on top of the excluder. But that's all I have for you guys today. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Any questions?
Cool.
Okay.
Just watch.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. For our last presentation in our innovative fisheries research section, we'll have fisheries specialist Tara McClintock. Tara will talk about another research project we're doing to mitigate seal interaction in gill nets using higher frequency pingers. Let me get this set up.
Hi, everyone. Just while Kristen's setting this up, I just would like all the commercial fishermen in the room to raise your hand. We've met all the legislators, and I'd like for them to see who you are. So why don't you raise your hand? Come on, let's see all you guys. All right. We really appreciate you guys coming out here today. We know how hard it is to get away from the water, but we're just so grateful that you were able to come. So today I'm going to talk about assessing an alternate frequency pinger to mitigate seal interaction within the sink gill net fishery. This was a project that's funded by the Salt and Stall Kennedy program and was brought to us by members of the gill net fishery in Montauk. Now, the problem that they're experiencing is that the mandated pingers, which are a 10 kilohertz sounds, this is through the harbor porpoise take reduction plan, and all in certain areas and fisheries, the gill nets have to be outfitted with these pingers. It's a requirement, and they're feeling that the seals are associating this sound with food. It's about a dinner bell effect. These are very intelligent animals, and this kind of learned behavior is something that they could do, and they're seeing more interaction. So with the increase of seal populations, the incidences of seal interactions are happening within the gill net fishery. So the proposed solution is to trial a higher frequency pinger that's been created in the UK and tested overseas. And we're looking at outcomes to continue the high level of harbor porpoise bycatch reduction. So it will also continue that. The frequency that we're going to test is also a deterrent to harbor porpoises and reduce seal fisher interactions.
and reduce seal mortality and depredation events. This is just some research that's been done overseas, and they found that this frequency pinger has continued to reduce harbor porpoise bycatch reduction. These are just a simple table of the two different pingers. So 10 kilohertz is the pinger that's required for US fishermen. And we're proposing to test 60 to 120, and that's a cycling pinger. So it'll have randomized pings. And this is to prohibit habituation so that the seals are not, you know, having this learned behavior. So they're gonna be exposed to a different sound each time they come upon the net. This was another project that they did with captive seals over in the UK, and they found that it didn't, they were not affected by the pinger when it was on or off. What we're doing is actually these pingers, the pingers that are required by the US National Marine Fisheries Service can be heard by seals for up to 3 miles. So with that wide range, the seals could be coming in, you know, from some distance to come to feed. This frequency is outside of their hearing. So we're hoping that they're not hearing it and they aren't called in. So this is, you know, audiogram. I won't go into detail about it, but because I'm not a seal hearing expert, but the lower frequencies that are currently mandated, they're in the optimal range of seals. That's why they're coming in. They're coming in to eat. They are ruining nets. They are depredating on the fish and causing you know, impact to the harvest, and they're dangerous to handle, you know, for the fishermen. And there's mortalities, which is also a bad thing. This is our proposed project. We're going to do 44 trips in this southeast area off of Montauk with a gill netter from Montauk. And this is the standard gear type. We're going to use 10 panels that are 300 feet long, and we're going to do 6 strings. 3 strings will have the control, which is the mandated pinger, and 3 strings will have the experimental. We'll be randomizing the position of them, and we'll be spacing them away from each other so they don't influence each other. We're going to do soak durations for the standard, you know, what's standard for the fishery. You know, whether the fishing is heavy, we'll go every day. If it's, you know, weather dependent, as always. We added a second layer of data collection to this project, which is passive acoustic monitoring, and that's underwater recording. What we're going to do is we're going to set up what the mandated pinger is, and we're going to record harbor porpoise clicks in that area. That also is going to cycle on and off. So when the pinger is on, we should hear no clicks of harbor porpoise, and when it's off, we should then hear them in the area again. We're going to do that for both pingers so that we can just add another layer that the harbor porpoise are in the area. As with all of our projects, we perform stakeholder engagement. As Kristen mentioned, we get most of our ideas from the fishermen coming to us with, you know, challenges that they're facing, and we try to give them solutions through research. So now the Greater Atlantic Regional Fisheries Office and the New England and Mid-Atlantic Fisheries Management Councils are aware of this issue and of this proposed research, and they have made it a priority. And that's it for me. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. And thank you to everyone at CCE for your important research, which is helping to sustain Long Island's fishermen, as well as the fisheries resources and protected species for years to come. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to our innovations in seafood marketing session?
So when there's development of new technology to help again with the fishing industry, is there a way for the industry to get these types of technology free of charge or
Yes.
through state grants?
Yes, often, once we have proven that the technology is effective and beneficial to the fishermen, we have applied for additional grants to then provide the gear or the technology free of charge. We've done that with the large mesh belly panel. We've done that with another gear, the drop chain, and we've done it with electronic reporting technology. So we had 2 projects to distribute, I think like close to 80 to 100 iPads to fishermen once electronic reporting became mandatory or suggested for our fishermen. So we've done a lot of work making sure that this research is adopted and really at no cost or minimal cost. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our innovations in seafood marketing, a topic of today's agenda. We have Jermaine Owens. You can come up. Jermaine Owens is a master fishmonger and owner of North Fork Seafood, a Peconic-based seafood company that sells fish to commercial customers and restaurants and at 3 farmers markets across Long Island. Let me just get your presentation. No, don't worry. If you don't, it's okay. Okay, so like I said, Jermaine is the owner of North Fork Seafood. After getting his start in the industry at a young age, Jermaine worked for 3 decades as a professional fish cutter prior to opening North Fork Seafood right before the coronavirus pandemic hit the United States. But while other businesses were struggling, North Fork Seafood was thriving, in part due to the home delivery service and other innovations in marketing. So today, Jermaine is here to talk to us about operating a wildly successful seafood business, what he believes they've done so well, and what innovations he's used to improve his success and what he's learned along the way. So I have worked alongside Jermaine at the East End Food Market in Riverhead, and I've seen this man sell out of sea robins. So not just sell sea robins, but sell out of sea robins, okay? So it's pretty interesting and a good thing to see. So Jermaine has been featured in People magazine and on the show Dinner Party tonight. And we're really excited to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Should I go?
There you go. Go here.
So good afternoon, everyone. And everyone who was involved in this thing happening today. Thank you for having me. So yeah, got my start during the pandemic. Right before the pandemic started, I came up with this delivery model. And one thing that I thought was important is getting a having a one-on-one relationship with all of my customers. And, you know, safety was key, you know, and when the pandemic hit, how was I gonna, you know, start this thing when everything was up in the air? So we came up with the delivery model, vacuum sealing, being safe, you know, door to door, you know, sustainable fish, making sure that what I was providing wasn't going through 15 to 20 hands before it got to you. So yeah, eventually that kind of phased out, which forced me to pivot to the farmers market, which gave me more range and availability for people to find us. So the commercial fishermen, these guys deserve a round of applause because, without them, a lot of this don't happen. So what I wanted to bring to the table was the fish that were being underutilized. Bring me all of that stuff. I want the skate, I want the sea robin, the sand shark. These fish are tasty. They come at a cheaper price. And also, just the benefits and educating people about, what's swimming in our bays. And, sometimes it's better than going to the grocery store and sourcing something that's not really, that the body don't really agree with. I chose a farmer's market to be, like I said, more direct. It was going in the lines of a brick and mortar, but I like to be in front of people selling my product. As you all know, of course, nobody can do it better than you. So using these underutilized fish was very important to me and, what I was trying to do here. Like I said, being direct with your customer forms a different type of relationship, which helped me, moving on to restaurants and things like that, making them more aware of, the healthy local fishery that we have here. Taking every opportunity to speak to, people, and again, educating you on your foods that we're eating and taking in. Being at the farmer's market, I see a lot of kids saying, "Mom, oh, look at it. Can we have monkfish tonight? Can we have fluke tonight?" And that tells me that, this is working. Also, the trick in selling out of sea robin and stuff like that is taking the bones out, taking the extra steps to make these fish a lot more comfortable and enjoyable eating. I don't want to have any type of fish with bones in it, right? Do you? I mean, also to let everybody know what we're trying to do, we also partner up with Grace and Grit. There's a catering company, but in the wintertime, they do small pop-ups. And we like to tag team with them, to put these local fish, to your palate and educate you more about what these fish taste like. What else do I have here for you? Just being passionate about, what I'm doing, I think helped me through the years, loving what I do, going to the local, commercial fishermen, that take care of this fish. When I get it, I'm able to fillet it up, make it beautiful, and present it at these farmers markets, which, are very important to what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, you guys got to bear with me. I'm not really good at speaking in front of people. I'm doing the best I can right now. I'm going to try and give you at least another 5 minutes. But I ain't gonna lie, I'm sweating up here, but I'm glad I'm able. I'm glad I'm able to make everybody laugh. But yeah, so you can see me tonight. You could catch me on Dinner Party Tonight. All you got to do is go online, type in Dinner Party Tonight. I got a great episode featuring tilefish, and that even we were trying to educate people more on, underutilized fish, which I can't believe tilefish is like, underutilized fish. A lot of people don't really know about it. But if we got any questions, yes, sir.
Thank you for the information, but, do you do any kind of advertising, like internet? kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, you know.
You pay them, you pay them to do more?
No, I just, I make a post every day. I let people know where I'm going, where I'm gonna be, and what we have to offer. So, and it's been working and good old word of mouth. So, yeah.
Farmers markets are you at, and what
Yes.
hours do they operate?
So I'm at Riverhead Farmers Market every Saturday, 9 to 1. I'm gonna be in Sag Harbor starting in May. Also, Fridays, 9 to 1 in East Hampton on Sundays, 9 to 1 also. So we're all over the place. Yes. Not really. It's all just me. I like, being involved in all of that. I like going up to everybody's doors with my smile and, whatever you ordered. So, I like to be in control of all aspects of the business I'm running. Yes.
What kind of things have you done that you think other fishermen could integrate to better sell their product as well?
That's a really good question. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know how to answer that. Just believing. There you go.
And I do like the marketing side of things. So I think each time we have a chance to market with someone, or each time we get an opportunity to do something like this, like the answer is always yes. Like, as uncomfortable as he might be, or as much as he doesn't like speaking in front of people, it's just yes to pretty much everything that he has time for. Like, pick up another farmer's market, yes. Pick up, a television show or a restaurant that wants to partner with us, everything is yes. As long as he has the time.
Yes, sir.
How many fishermen are you buying?
At least about 3 right now. Some guys in Shinnecock, a couple guys in Mattituck. So, and I'm looking to broaden that as well, because the more, access I have, the better access the community have, and who I'm selling to.
Crustacean and food fish shippers license to be able to?
Yeah, I mean, you need all of those permits to do what we're doing. Yeah.
We have an online question.
Right. Wow. Okay.
So you sell wholesale?
Yeah, I do sell some wholesale. I got a couple of restaurants that I deal with, but I'm definitely trying to do all farmers markets.
Okay. If you were to do, okay, so what is the delivery radius for you?
Basically all over the island, mostly Riverhead. A lot is in Orient, Sag Harbor. When the world started opening back up, the delivery service kind of backed down a little bit. So I'm trying to work on, building that back up.
And would you send customers an availability to this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how would you send that to them?
Email, I have a list, with an email address, and yeah, they can get a hold of us through that.
Okay, we'll put that in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, one last question.
It's all right.
You go to Stop and Shop, I'm sure you go to the CD section and see how much, all these items cost. What's your price point at the farmers markets compared to, grocery stores?
Well, that's why I try and, give people a cheaper option in the sea robin and the skate. The prices at the stores are actually too high for me, so I like to be around $11 for skate, and sea robin even less than that, just to make it more, available,
About like 40.
Porgies is one of my favorite, everybody know about fluke, right? So, Porgies is one of my favorite. I take the bones out of them and, it's under $10. You can't go wrong with that. It's good eating. It's, it's healthy. We are what we eat. So, yes.
Your customers' ideas on how to cook the fish that they may not be familiar with, if they haven't tried them before?
So if you come to the farmer's market, I might have some recipe cards there, or, I'll shoot out a recipe, something that we normally do, easy. But I usually have some recipe cards to go with whatever I'm selling. Yes.
Do you find that the fishing industry, that they're aware that you have the ability to sell some of these underutilized fish?
I'm sorry?
Is the fishing industry, are they aware that you will buy these underutilized types of fish?
Usually they're pretty surprised, but yeah, they are aware. Some of the guys that I deal with, they'll specifically save me skate if they get the sea robin, monkfish has been good. So yeah, they know what I'm looking for. Like I said, bring me all that underutilized fish. I'll do something with it.
Well, that's great for so many reasons, because it takes the pressure off some more popular fish.
Right.
It exposes people to a lot of different fish. It helps create markets for these fish, which allows the fishermen to make more money from a fish that might typically be discarded. So there's a lot of great reasons to learn how to cook a lot of these underutilized fish and support businesses like Northward Seafood who are doing it.
Right. And, not only fish, but, save the cow. And save all the chicken for me. No, I'm just kidding. So, yeah. But anybody else? Because you guys can tell I'm ready to be done, right?
You got the most question.
I know, right? Yes, sir.
Why don't you think in the past, really, there's nothing been east out in Greenport or farmers market on the weekend with the people there? It's just never, for some reason, it's never taken them up out there with someone with you. I think it would work fine. There's so many people walking through there. The fish markets are all in the same radius.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just wonder if it would really work out there when you got a lot of the commercial guys right in that local area also.
I think, with all the competition, I don't know if,
Yeah, it's tough.
It's tough out there,
Sorry, gallery back there again. When there was the farmers market in Greenport, the biggest problem, even with the produce, is that it's become such a tourist heavy area that a lot of people that are visiting there are not looking to cook for themselves. Like, they're not looking to take home fresh produce and veg. They're looking to enjoy the multitude of restaurants that have covered most of Greenport at this time. And even when they tried to revamp the farmers market, there was not enough local interest from farms or other purveyors. And Jermaine actually tried to do like a mini farmers market kind of thing in the bottom half of a restaurant. And it just never really flourished, even though it was in what we thought was the perfect location.
It was beautiful, I saw it.
Yeah,
It was nice.
it was in a great location. It was right in the center of town, walkable for everyone.
Yeah.
It just never.
Yeah.
It's just too much of a seasonality issue.
Do you think if we had more like ready to eat food, right? So like, and I know, I appreciate how much work you do taking the bones out, because I think that's like a big thing, right? Our local
That's
fish
a
markets
huge
don't
thing.
do a lot of that. So when people come in, that's the biggest like turn off for them, is that
Right.
then now they have to do work to it, right? But I think also maybe we could look at like preparing the fillets or marinating them, or right, like so that it comes with the recipe card and it's packed with the lemon butter herb sauce in
Right.
that cryovac, package. So all you have to do is throw it on the grill. You know what I mean? Like maybe if that would, have you tried any of that to see if that helps?
I mean, not really.
There's a lot of regulations for the packaging.
Right.
Like with ag and markets and DC, so it's like very, very specific, and there's a lot of more steps that has to be gone through. And to develop something like that and actually integrate it into what he's doing, I really think we just take.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that people that are going there,
They really don't like areas. I mean, we talked to so many people that would walk by and be like, that looks amazing, like that looks so fresh, like this is so nice. And then we would never ever
There's a
see
ton of
it.
foot traffic through those farmers markets, but nobody's buying
Nobody's
anything.
buying anything unless it's like you said, like ready to eat, but they're not even willing to like open the top of that grill. Like, they're on vacation, like, they wanna eat the cheese and the bread and the wine and call it a day.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Problem.
All right, we have another question online. What about not doing the farmer's market in the town center of Greenport? Perhaps a parking lot elsewhere nearby? Or partner with another farm with farm stand on the main road?
Like, everything is yes. I mean, I would, everything but Greenport, I think would work, I mean, I've been successful in every other place that I've been, so yes, I would definitely try that.
Well, thank you so much, Jermaine.
No
I
problem.
think Jermaine's passion for what he does is very obvious.
You can see it coming through my pores. Oh my God.
All right. Let's get set up for our next presentation. All right, so next up for our seafood marketing, we'll hear from CCE Fisheries Specialist Amanda Dowman on an innovative seafood marketing project that CCE is conducting research and a monkfish marketing project aimed at increasing consumer awareness and demand for monkfish in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. This is a collaborative effort with Food Export USA. And again, fishermen had brought this idea to us since the price they were getting for the monkfish was so low, it was hardly worth going fishing for them. Let's get started. So marketing monkfish and increasing consumer awareness and demand for this super ugly, scary looking fish is difficult. So we definitely needed to get creative, but you'll have the opportunity to try the monkfish and the monkfish chowder today. And here you'll hear from Amanda. Thank you. Aw, thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, so the fact that we have monkfish for you to taste today is not a coincidence. It's all part of the plan. So, yeah, so this is our monkfish marketing and audience expansion project. It is funded by the Saltonston Kennedy grant through NOAA. So we have funds to really branch out and reach out to more people about monkfish and try and get the fishermen who get this nice, sustainable, delicious fish onto more people's plates. Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room that this fish is really icky. A lot of fishermen I have spoken to call it head fish, and you can see why, because most of it is this big head. And yes, it's related to the anglerfish from Nemo. It does have a little elysium here that it uses to fish itself. But this other half of the fish is actually quite delicious, and it also has the name poor man's lobster because it is firm and sweet, just like lobster. In fact, we spoke to a retailer that would make some of his chowders and his lobster bisque with monkfish, and no one was all the wiser. So that's cheating, but very cool to know that it really does taste just like monkfish. So I really like lobster. So it's called poor man's lobster because it was more affordable than lobster. It's a local fish, is caught right off of Long Island and throughout the Northeast. It's sustainable. Their populations are doing really well, and it's good for you, just like seafood. We know seafood is with all the other buzzwords like omega-3s and things like that. So it is actually a very clean fishery. Most of the monkfish that are harvested on Long Island come from gillnet boats. The gill nets, as you may or may not know, is a long string of nets that sinks down to the bottom. So it catches all these demersal or seabed loving fish like monkfish. And as we heard from Tara, they have pingers on them so that it keeps the harbor porpoises away from the nets. And hopefully once we get those higher frequency pingers, we'll also not have seals in the nets. But most of the bycatch, the big majority of the bycatch in the monkfish fishery are other tasty, plentiful fish that could use a domestic marketing campaign like this. So skates and dogfish are mostly of what gets caught in these nets with the monkfish. Monkfish is very managed, has a lot of regulatory bodies looking into managing it and keeping it a sustainable fish. So there are many management measures that include catch limits, landing limits, size limits. You can't get monkfish that are just little babies. You have to go after the bigger ones, and many other regulations that reduce bycatch and impacts to the habitat. But unfortunately, with all these really, really great things that monkfish has going for it, nobody knows about it. So, yeah, so the local fishery around here, like I said, they get them right out of the Long Island waters here and all throughout the Northeast. But most of that monkfish was exported out to other countries, particularly France, Korea, and Japan. These countries really enjoyed the tail meat that I was just talking about that tastes like lobster, and Japan would also take the livers, which was a really great way for fishermen to make money off of the monkfish as well. And we heard from other fishermen as well that Korea would take whole fish and they would actually cook the entire monkfish. So it was a really profitable thing going on until the markets shifted. So at some point, these markets shifted to a cheaper alternative monkfish species, and our Atlantic monkfish didn't have a domestic market to fall back on. So as you can probably not see from my graph here, I'll just read it out to you. So in the year of 2012, our fishery caught about 9,000 or more like 10,000 tons of monkfish, and they were able to make $27 million off of it. But then when you go down here to 2019, they caught just about 10,000 tons as well, but they only got 14 million. So that's a really huge drop. And ever since then, it's kind of just been spiraling and spiraling down into the toilet. So the fishermen came to us, they said, we're not getting a good price for this once lucrative fish. What can we do? Why isn't it getting bought anymore? So we said, you know what? We are gonna come in and save monk. So that's what CCE is doing right now. We have this project where we are promoting monkfish stateside. So we have partnered with so many fishing industry members, regulatory bodies, organizations from Maine to New Jersey, where the bulk of monkfish is caught in the United States. And we're trying to build a domestic demand for monkfish. So we have a lot of things planned. This project was only started in September. Since then, we've been doing our market analysis, where we have surveys, which are in the back on the table, and it would be great if everyone filled one in. Hint, hint, please. But we also took surveys for the fishermen and dealers and retailers. So just a lot of different surveys, each one made specifically for that branch of the industry, so that we can get a really, really clear look at what's going on with monkfish right now and why monk is in a funk. So yeah, we are just shouting from the rooftops about monkfish, just like the monkfish and Tara are in this picture, because monkfish is great. Yeah, so we do need to implement some innovative ways to market. Things are really changing, and we're taking advantage of consumer trends. You've probably heard all these great buzzwords about, oh, this thing is so local and it's sustainable. That's what we're really riding on with monkfish, because it is local and it is sustainable. And you can trace it back to your boat because of how wonderfully local it is. There's this sudden urge to seek out something new. So monkfish for a lot of people is super new. A lot of people don't even know that it exists. A lot of people don't know what it looks like, probably, thank God, but it's a good fish and it's new for everybody. So we are introducing monkfish in a two-prong approach. The first one would be introductions to institutions. So that would be a big step to get big bulk buys of monkfish from our local fishermen. So we would introduce monkfish as a local and cheaper alternative fish rather than whatever else they're buying. Just get that into colleges, get it into the hospitals, things like that, things where they have a cafeteria and they got to feed a lot of people. That'd be a great place to put monkfish. And then we're also looking into, it's funny that you were talking about that before, a value added product for monkfish, or things like just preparing it so that it get that gray mucousy layer off of the meat, because that really ruins it. But once you get that off, it's fantastic. So just to get something that's ready made, something that's ready to put into the oven, and you don't have to go through a million steps to teach someone how to do it correctly. Or even canning. We're looking into everything when it comes to monkfish, and that's what our workshop is going to be really about. That is on April 13th up in New Bedford, and we are inviting all of the fishermen and all of our industry members and partners to come and figure out a way to get monk out of its funk. So there's a lot of benefits. I know that a lot of that has been touched upon already. We are really all here for local fish, and it's just the right thing to do for basically everyone. So more green for everyone when underutilized fish are used. So of course that directly increases revenue and economic growth in the fishing industry. Of course, the guys who are getting the fish will get more money for them once more people are demanding it more. But there's also more seafood options for people. So there's more public health increases. Seafood provides a lot of health benefits. We all know that. But also lower prices for these underutilized fish like monkfish will help more disadvantaged people get in on healthy seafood as well. And of course, there are the environmentally helpful benefits as well. If you're not trucking fish across the country, but just across the island, well, that's a lot less CO2 in our atmosphere. So we have done our surveys. These are the survey results so far. We have surveyed about 110 industry members so far. One of our biggest questions for them was, what are the issues with monkfish? Why is monk in a funk? And they said that it's mostly these four things right here. So we hear a lot about the price, that the prices aren't working out for anybody. The price that the harvesters are getting is too low, while the dealers and retailers say that the prices are too high, and consumers are not really aware that any of this is going on. There's also a lack of the large markets. And because the harvesters aren't getting enough money to go out and fish for monk, well, the supply is gonna really suffer. So we asked them, okay, from the industry point of view, what are some of the solutions? And a lot of the guys were very supportive of value-added products. You know, a lot of the response is, hey, whatever works. Whatever works is gonna be just fine with me. Definitely marketing to the institutions. Those were ideas directly from fishermen. And the big one, raise the consumer awareness that this is a really great fish to eat. But the consumers get the final say. So far we have surveyed about 650 consumers from Maine to New Jersey. Most consumers are pretty willing to try a new seafood. They are represented by this yellow and the green bars. These are extremely and very likely to try a new seafood.
And most of them don't really mind whether or not that seafood is value made or ready made. They're just ready to try a new seafood. They're just primed and ready to be introduced to monkfish and other utilized species, which is really, really interesting. And I'm glad to see it, honestly, because that makes our job way easier. Unfortunately, people who have heard of monkfish and know about it, they don't really see it around, probably because of the supply issues. So most of them have seen it either in a fish market or on a restaurant menu where many of them have ordered it before, but to find it themselves, very, very difficult. So that's where we're at, and CCE is here to kind of untangle all those problems and try to get monk back where it should be as a great sustainable fish. Yeah, so take the monkfish survey, please. It's in the back. We can talk about it later, and I thank you for listening to my talk. I got questions. Yes.
I have a question. So you mentioned earlier that there was an alternate species that kind of came in and then that's a part of the reason why monkfish dropped in value. What species are that?
It's another type of monkfish that they have over I think it was either Asia or Chinese.
Okay, got it.
The Chinese monkfish. So for them, that's a little bit more local, especially for Korea and Japan.
Sure.
So
Smaller, cheaper.
it's
So we've seen, and I don't necessarily agree with this practice, but I've seen it where we rebrand a fish, we rename it, right? We
Right.
renamed Patagonian toothfish, Chilean sea bass, and nearly decimated the population.
Yeah.
But it completely changed people's perspective, right?
Yeah.
You've heard of monkfish, and you look at this ugly fish, right?
Mhm.
Is there any benefit to doing something like that, or is it better to really stick with, preserve the name of the fish and really try to market it?
We have actually spoken about that, like as we were writing the grant. And then since then, we've had a couple of people be like, oh, just change the name and it'll be great. I'm not really sure. I see the benefits, but I also see the disadvantages of that, just mostly because, renaming stuff, people are getting more aware of seafood fraud and things like that. So, me personally, I don't want to associate, a new fish that we want people to eat and want people to trust, and want people to trust the fishermen also who are getting it, then to find out, oh, it's not called this, it's actually this. Like, to call this a bass would just be weird. But you could also do what that retailer does and call it lobster and put it into your lobster biz. But, yeah.
Yeah, so, I had no idea that monkfish was available on the East Coast. Like, obviously, I'm East Asian. My family's from Korea and the Philippines, and I've only ever had monkfish when I'm in Asia. And so, to find out, sitting here in this room, that monkfish is available on the East Coast is really, really awesome. And I was wondering, if it originally was really booming as an export thing, but that market has really subsided. Have you made any efforts or been successful at all in building connections with Asian communities here in the US? Because I know that Korean and Chinese food, especially trying to get really authentic Korean and Chinese food, is becoming so popular on both coasts. I'm not really totally sure about the rest of the US, but at least huge markets in California, and then I live right in the city, and I know that tin fish and just different kinds of seafood are becoming really popular. So yeah, I was wondering if there may be any connections with Asian business and restaurant for yourself.
Yeah, all of those are really great ideas that we'll definitely talk about at our workshop. Like I said, the project's only just started in September, so we've just been doing our surveys just to get a baseline, really. But that is an excellent idea that we have heard from plenty of dealers and processors and retailers that we have spoken with, that, it would be great to, go towards the Asian markets and, people who are familiar with monkfish already and get them to just eat more monkfish. Perfect. Absolutely. So yeah, that would definitely be on the list. Our project is just for the region of the Northeast here, but we're hoping that with our market analysis and then our marketing plan that we're going to make by the end of this project, that those dealers, processors, that they'll expand out after that. Like we're kind of building like the ground floor, and hopefully with this plan and with all this knowledge, then they can go out and continue on with those ideas. So yeah, for sure, that would be amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else heard this, but, there was a fish that was named, Swinehead.
Yeah.
And did you hear that? It's changed to, they changed the name to orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now they're decimated too.
Now they're decimated.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not, like I said, that will probably come up in our workshop, and, you know, you're all invited to our workshop to, you know, share these ideas with our other partners. We have a lot of partners coming from Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So it'd be great to have more people come from New York and say, hey, these have been my experiences with monkfish, and this is what I think we should do. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we have 2 questions from a person online here.
Okay.
What infrastructure exists on Long Island for the area to create such value-added products? Do we have any processing facilities, commercial kitchens, anything like that?
Yeah, that is one of the big hindrances, at least here on Long Island, is that we don't have a canning facility. We don't have a lot of processors. So a lot of the processors that we're talking to, they're coming from Massachusetts and whatnot. So yeah, that is a big hindrance. The answer is no, we don't really have that infrastructure.
Is there a reason that Long Island doesn't have any fish processing?
I really don't know. Yeah.
It used to be, it's just too expensive. New York is too expensive for a retail property of that size, where the value of the fish isn't enough to sustain it. So there used to be lots of canning and processing places across Long Island, but they've since shut it.
And I'd like to jump in on that, and that's coming across the US. We have very little infrastructure across the country for processing our own seafood because it's much cheaper for us to do so overseas. Working towards trying to change that, but it is a very challenging issue to address because of the cost and price, especially of operating in our coastal areas. I'd also quickly like to address the marketing and rebranding. So you do need to be careful because there are legally definitions for the seafood that you are using and selling, and legal names you can use to market those seafoods, especially if you're selling commercially, right, and interstate. So on the local level, you could potentially rebrand the market, but there's already a lot of species of fish, and consumers are already confused. So I warn you against, or just be wary when you start rebranding and naming fish, because you're just creating more confusion.
We do just have one more question from online. What are the current channels that would be used to get the fish to larger buyers such as institutions? And are there any specific distributors you have in mind or other logistical options?
Well, like I said, we just started this project, so we're still in the survey phase, but we have definitely we have made a lot of relationships already with processors and dealers and whatnot for this. We did just recently have Stony Brook University take a lot of monkfish. So that was through Gray Bar, I believe. Yeah. So we
Processors and distributors up in New England, up in New Bedford, than we have here. You know, we have Gray Bar who can distribute, to restaurants and schools and hospitals, but they're not really, buying direct from boats, which we want them to.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Jermaine, for your interesting talks on innovations in seafood marketing. Okay, so now we are moving on to our innovations in seafood harvesting section of our talk today. So We're so thankful to have some commercial fishermen here today. I know it's not easy to get you guys here, especially on a day where the weather is pretty good and it's not a big storm. So thank you for coming today. I know it's even harder to get you guys on stage to talk about innovations in fishing. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible for you in the following format. So a lot of fishermen have offered their input on the types of innovations that make fish harvesting more efficient. And we have used that input to develop a few slides that we have in the next presentation. And we would like the fishermen in attendance to just jump in and explain to the audience the innovations that they use. We're talking about electronics, electronic reporting systems, gear, marketing, vessel technology, and safety innovations. So we'll have a few minutes for each of these sections. And CCE Fisheries Specialist Tara McClintock and Alex Mercado are going to moderate this discussion. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Gonna have to look like a game show host for this, sorry. Yeah, so as Kristen said, we really are looking for input from the commercial fishing industry on this one. I'm not a great public speaker, so if you could take the load off my shoulders, that would be great. We need to hear what you guys have to say and what you're doing. We have an idea from what we see in the field, but we really want to hear firsthand how you're innovating in your harvesting techniques. As you can see here in the top left, that's a local fisherman working on an excluder grate for dogfish, for inshore squid fishing. Top right, we have a head rope sensor being used in a trawl net. The bottom left is just some butterfish, just filling some space there. In the middle, I'm not sure what that is. Tara might be able to enlighten us.
No, Kristen, you pick that one.
It's something innovative. And then a satellite, because a lot of location software and safety equipment is based off of satellites at this point in time. So from our perspective, commercial fishing is inherently innovative. To keep up with environmental changes as well as regulatory changes, fishermen constantly need to be changing what they're doing and how they're doing it to keep ahead of the curve. Fishing technologies have developed naturally over time, and fishing gears and practices have become more sophisticated. If you look at, let's say, a dragger, what doors looked like 100 years ago, they looked like wood doors, and now they're giant multi-thousand-pound steel. So part of innovation is remaining vital and keeping up with everything changing while balancing multiple. This is what I'm talking about. Thank you. I can't really read this and I can't really read that, so I'm kind of just squinting here. Minimizing environmental impacts, reducing waste, preserving the biodiversity of the fish stocks, maintaining stock abundance, preserving population structure, etc. It keeps fishermen on their toes because it's always changing. So many of these innovations optimize efficiency, reduce bycatch, improve safety on the vessels, improve data collection for fish stock assessment and management, and help fishermen comply with fisheries regulations. So one of the first things that people think of when they think of innovations in commercial fishing is the electronics that fishermen use to catch fish. Things like GPS, fish finders, echo sounders, something we've been seeing more and more frequently for our trips to make sure that all of our tows are consistent is the use of net sensors. So while the net is out fishing, we can see in a 3D image the shape of the net, how exactly it's fishing, how far apart the doors are, the wings are, how high off the ground the head rope is, in addition to catch sensors, to picking up real-time estimates for how many fish are in the net. So at this time, we would like to ask the audience.
Fishermen want to talk about, maybe how you've seen these things change over time, or, if you've been fishing 30 to 40 years, what were you fishing with back then, and how have these innovations helped you with your harvesting methods? Anyone? Bueller? Did you go out dead reckoning and, throw out a net, or, what was what kind of knowledge were you using?
We used to use the RAM,
Okay. Right, and you use Loran to help you, set you're talking about lobster pots set on a specific line.
Yeah.
And retrieve your gear.
You probably also have a lot of developing the computer programs that are now available, like PC WinPlot, zero something called.
Right, WinPlot times zero.
Years ago, everything pen and paper on where to tow, where you couldn't tow, if there was a shipwreck here or a hang there. Nowadays, everything's computerized. And you can put any hang, I have 10,000 hangs, where I know not to tow, and I have 10,000 tows that I know where to see. Years ago, fishermen never had that trial and error, go here, you rip your net up, you found out the hard way. So I think years have helped greatly in not losing gear and lost hands more money than we spend.
Right, and I mean, that's also the thing, is these devices come at a high cost. They're efficient, they help the fishermen target their catch and get to the area where they need to be. But it's very costly, and sometimes they become obsolete, and then you're replacing it. So there's that give and takes too with that as well. That's everyone should know that that's just another added layer of cost to the industry to be efficient and to be safe.
The technology is phenomenal.
Mhm.
They're getting it so that you can sometimes tell the size of it.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, large medium is worth nothing.
Right.
The largest jumbos are worth something.
Right. Yeah.
It's just technology. Doors, they get smaller, more efficient, less fuel to burn.
Exactly. Right.
Make everybody happy.
Yes.
It gets better and better.
Right.
With these sets that you take, if they really work, fine.
Right.
For a lot of different reasons. But as far as innovation, it's getting better.
And there's no subsidies for fishermen to upgrade their electronics either. There's no assistance for them to move to these technologies. They do it on their own. Say with the catch sensors, you would go out fishing, you wouldn't know how much you had in your net. You could rip the whole back end of the net off if you came onto something, and then you would only know when you were hauling back. Now with catch sensors and the door sensors showing your spread, they're showing you when you have a large catch, you need to haul back so you don't lose your net, which, let me get some prices. I'm thinking 30. Well, I wasn't kidding when I said a net could cost $30,000, right? Yes.
I know I asked a question about, is there, government help fund some of these integration technologies, and maybe, and now you're saying maybe not.
I'm saying Cornell writes the grants to do some of this technology transfer through the research and the knowledge that we have, and through education, but there's no structure right now that the fishermen can apply for any kind of, refunds for spending, upwards of $40,000 on electronics. So
Don't farmers have the ability to get subsidies?
let's look into it. What do you think, guys?
It's been going on for years. It's nothing new. I think most of the fishermen would rather not see the government get involved as much as they would do something for the fishermen in a way of one of the things they wanted to talk about.
But the problem is
our system is archaic compared to Europe. We have Hunts Point Market. Hunts Point Market takes fishing from North Carolina all the way to Maine. And a lot of it goes to New York because that's where all the money was. What we have going on now is we have a demand problem. We don't have catching the fish problem, we don't have too much of that. The price of the fish is down to nothing, they're catching the fish. And they're right there at the borderline between fuel prices and everything else that our smaller draggers are all tied up with. It's just not worth it. It's not worth money. What we need is a Hunts Point one. If you can get somebody in there to package this stuff and ship it all over the world, or all over the country at least, it could be a different deal. But all we have is, you go to Hunts Point, boxes, sell it. There's no innovation there whatsoever. It's
That's the Fulton Fish Market. It's the new Fulton Fish Market.
That's the way it is.
Right.
But we need demand. And if you want to do something with our legislatures, whoever they might be.
Legislators have anger, and we have legislator trustee aid here. And a legislator.
Get all the big fish housing. See if something can be done with some, if there's any cheap real estate left. But this is what's going on, COVID. A lot of the restaurants in Manhattan are gone. They're not doing it, and now with the way crime is in New York, there's no rebound in sight. And, you know, I mean, like what Jermaine was doing, it's great, all well and good. It's this much to us. It just doesn't do it.
You need some like a big processing, packaging, New York food, you know, something, you know, yes.
If
All right.
there is a problem, if New York State, I just thought about this before, if New York, like, we're saying on Long Island, there's no processing. Hunts Points are only as a wholesaler market that we have. What if there was a processor here on Long Island somewhere that could distribute to the hospitals, to colleges, to this, to that? Who does that? You said, you know, that there was one company, but whatever,
Well, Great Bar is just a small,
why can't the state get behind this? And that will also spread the word of all these species, also like Jermaine was talking about porgies, monkfish, sea robins, things we throw over because there's no market for it, but they're there. But there's also the state, nobody pushes them.
Right.
Let's use them in hospitals, let's use them in colleges. Years ago, if there was a processing place, you know, facility.
Has anybody lobbied for that upstate?
That I don't know, but I mean, it also without it, you know, like, when we send fish into the market, you know, it's a crapshoot. The fish are gonna be high, the fish are gonna be low. This, we could develop something steady, year round, like, you distribute them for X amount. Here, you're gonna get this amount for a porgy.
Right.
All throughout the year.
Right.
And that would help us, you know, judge what we gotta do, how we do it.
How do you farm this? You guys.
I don't work with them.
Into that, right? So USDA works with the Department of Agriculture to take surplus foods from the farmers, and they put those into our institutions such as K-12 schools, college institutions, correctional facilities, right? So it's through the Department of Agriculture. That
Which the fisheries are not under the Department of Agriculture. There's another big issue right there.
Yeah.
Farmers have the same problem with fishing, they have a minimum that they got that.
All right, well, that was Charles Etzel from Montauk, and I appreciate your comments, and Mike Bowes from Shinnecock. So another innovation that you know, the fishermen have stepped into is electronic reporting. Everything used to be on paper. All catch reports were written down and submitted by mail to the DEC or to NOAA. But it came down that electronic reporting was going to become mandatory, and the benefits of this innovation were to reduce time spent with writing and mailing, and reduce paper. And it's received in a timelier manner through the interwebs. And then we have reduced data errors, improve recall, improve overall accuracy, provide record keeping for fishermen and, match up other fisheries data reports to confirm catch and sale. Because all dealers that purchase fish need to report electronically as well. The dealers who buy fish have been reporting electronically for almost 20 years. I remember I was here, I went into Fulton Fish Market on Fulton Street and talked to dealers about using computers, and they did not have computers. They had stacks of paper. I had one dealer say to me, "Oh, Tara, I got the DVD in the mail and I put it in and it did not play on my TV." I said, "Well, that's a CD-ROM for your computer." Said, "I don't have a computer." I said, "Let me help you." So electronic reporting has come a long way. Many different programs have been used, but everything is moving smoothly now. Cornell got a grant to give out iPads. We helped train fishermen. And that was a long, hard process for some of the older fishermen. I am a 24-hour hotline, obviously, for all of your computer problems. Does any fisherman want to talk about electronic reporting?
I like that. You get used to it. I don't like it, but you get used to it.
Love it. And Tara taught us how to use it, and it was awesome, and the iPads have been so helpful, and it takes what used to be a much larger chore of handwriting those VTRs and makes it much faster.
We don't have a table in the house. And what do we do? I've seen it every big drawer I have.
What is the rule? 7 years?
Yeah, but what now if everything's.
It's there's electronically on the other.
Of course, then if something happens to you electronics.
It's in the cloud. In the interwebs. Go to the next one.
Question.
You can go ahead.
Question.
Yeah.
Are there gonna be any more tablets become available?
We went through the tablets. We do have an opportunity to apply for another grant that's offered by NIPWIC for. Now, New York State has not made it mandatory for fishermen to report electronically. They can do it voluntarily, which we have helped. Many New York State only fishermen do that. But if New York DC were to go over and make that mandatory, we would again absolutely be there, you know, to try to get a grant to help the fishermen again. No, you don't.
Sure. Yeah, so fishing gear also has changed quite a bit. And this one, we're really gonna have to rely on the fishermen because we only know of what we see and what we read about. We're not in the field with this technology. So I'm really putting it out to you. I know there's a few different types of fishermen here, but whether it be pot fishing, hook and line, dragging, what has changed in the past 5 years? How are you innovating and changing your gear to keep catching fish and catching a lot of them?
Go to the next slide.
Here are some examples.
Right. I mean, like we talked with the nets, you know, rope nets, or I've heard this long wing net. I think it's a version of a rain net that's been, you know, developed a long time ago, but you know, things that are improving the herding, improving the efficiency to catch fish.
As well as durability.
Right. And I mean, fishermen are constantly changing. Oh, I'm sorry, you have a comment in the back?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that a lot of the twine we're using now, it's so thin and strong, it's top. We've implemented a lot of that. That's one right there. It's about $140 a pound.
See, again, another cost. With all these innovations, you're also adding another layer.
Drag and it saves fuel, and we're always thinking about that. We're always thinking about being more efficient as well as catching.
Right, the water flow, right?
Yes, that was that. We're always trying to get never-ending series of science experiments.
Exactly. I mean, everything that you do is innovative. Every decision you have to make, every time you set the net out or you put the line in the water, you're, constantly testing. Is this gonna be effective? And then if it's not, you gotta change it. You gotta do something else.
And most of the cost goes to the fishermen.
Yes.
When the government decides to put something on your boat electronically, it's the fisherman that has to put the bill. It's their idea, but the fisherman has to put the bill, and a lot of it is not cheap.
Yes.
And unlike other markets where we can raise the price of the product to help offset the
Well, we
cost.
have the most screwed up deals.
People won't pay more, right? So you're held to that as well.
Yeah, right. You fish the market, you pray to God, you get a price. You have no control over it whatsoever. So instead of going to the store where you see all the nice fancy dress, the price you want to buy.
There's probably a lot of people in this room that don't know that that's how it works, right? That commercial fishermen will go pack out cartons of fish and they ship them into this new
That's all
fish
in
market.
consignment.
No idea how much they're gonna get paid for that fish until the check comes in the mail a week or so later.
Plus, I don't think the public in general knows how hard it is and what it takes to get the supplies. And on a boat, packing it, it takes a lot, and I don't think the public realizes, how hard it is to get you what you need.
You have to remember, every piece of seafood, someone risked their life for it. Every piece.
Yeah, especially going by doing.
But
Thank you. That's John Aldridge. He was an innovator, used his boots to stay alive. Now, that's innovation out of necessity. Yeah, different things that fishermen are constantly doing, to try to reduce certain species that they don't want, or, to reduce costs. Different things on nets, different hooks, different line. What do we got next, Alex? Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, for pot fishing, I started using these pop-up buoys. It's like a little zinc thing that your buoy stays submerged with the pot, and then after 7 days, it corrodes away and releases the buoy up. So you can see you float then, and this way that helps to lower the incidence of people stealing what's in the pot or completely stealing the pot.
Yeah, what's your name? I'm sorry.
Steve Dunn.
Steve Dunn, and where do you fish?
I fish out in the Western Sound.
Okay, and you had a lot of problems, like voter interaction and things with your pots, you're
Yeah,
saying?
all the time. Yeah. There's a float. If you float your pot, there's a very good chance of you gone.
Right.
So is that system common in the Western Sound?
That's the Western Sound.
Yeah.
Offshore, you're probably not
Offshore,
good.
you have mobile gear, scallop and draggers. They have no idea where your gear is. They don't see it. Plus, if you have other lobstermen, they have no idea that your gear is there, and then other gear goes right on top of your gear.
Yeah.
So for the most part, it doesn't.
Well, it's very specific to, certain fisheries, inshore, offshore, Okay. There we go. Okay, yeah, and I mean, some fishermen have moved to direct marketing straight from, it takes a machine. Unfortunately, Phil Carlin is not here today, but he is the prime example. He is a treasure that we have here in New York of a fisherman that goes out and catches the fish and cuts it and takes it to the market. He's about 80 years old now, and he's just nonstop. He's not stopping. It's incredible. But we also have Mike Bouse that does a similar thing. He has a boat. He goes out fishing. He goes to the green markets. It's a lot of work. Are you finding it, effective? Is it, how is it working for you?
The green markets?
Yeah.
It's effective, and you see that people enjoy direct contact with the fish. The big thing. And that's what I'm also saying to if there was a big processing place somewhere in New York State that people knew, hey, your fish is going from me, the fisherman, to the processing things, and you buy from there. Everybody at the markets, you know, the green markets, they appreciate what I do and the work it takes to get there. I think if it was just marketed on a bigger scale, I think it would help everybody.
Right, yeah.
But the green, you know, the green markets, like, you know, we're talking about full fish market and all that uncertainty, kind of takes that part out.
But then you have to process it, you know what I mean, and that takes more time, you know, you know, I've heard before, it's like, I'm a fisherman, I'm not a cutter, I'm not a salesman, you know, you have to kind of pick and choose, you know, it's just adding on 3 more jobs that you have to do, you know? Depends on what kind of volume you're landing as well. Yes, you have a question?
I was just gonna say, I mean, years ago, I was part of the New York Seafood Council.
Okay.
So we worked with Ken Wall from, and we represented the New York State seafood industry for a lot of years.
Okay.
So I mean, that was, and what we would do is we get funding from the state, but we also got funding from like fish markets and stuff. There are a lot of fish markets and processors, smaller processors on Long Island. I do think that maybe what happened was we lost our funding.
Yeah.
Other
states, other like Rhode Island, Massachusetts, they have state
Right.
employees that are funded to promote local seafood promotion.
Right. I mean, I actually, I
Programs.
heard the, you know, thing, yesterday, I was listening online. And, I brought all, like, in my car, I have all the buses, we represented.
What's your name?
All Lance Edwards.
Okay.
I am a seafood specialist now, I work for, I work with Cisco, I represent Portico Seafood.
Okay.
But I mean, I was, pretty involved with the New York Seafood Council for a lot of years, but we really do need to get something like that going.
I mean, we're trying here at Cornell with our Choose Local Fish Initiative, trying to get more people, trying to get the state behind it,
Right.
you know.
And we were the guys that originally started, like, we were
Right,
helping.
like John
with,
Scotty, you know John Scotty? Were you involved with the Seafood Council back then?
No,
Not really.
No?
I mean,
Roger Tollefson involved?
yeah, Roger was very involved, he was the president, and then, you know, Ken Gall was was, right, Seagrant, yeah, so that was our group, and then we promoted, you know, for this, the New York Seafood industry, you know, for all those years, so.
We're trying to pick up the ball there, we're trying to pick up.
But we
You know,
probably need something like that.
These things, though, there's food movements, local law movement, you know, traceability, sustainability, their own buzzwords. You know, there's definitely markets available.
In New York State, I just want to say, it's not commercial fisherman friendly. They don't have our back. And the fishermen, I know a lot of people that have moved to Rhode Island to fish, to have a viable commercial fishing career. It's tough to fish out of New York. The state, for whatever reason, just doesn't seem to back us. They don't help the docks out. They don't help us out. There's no incentives to be fishermen in New York State. Plus, their regulatory process, as somebody mentioned earlier, is archaic. The permits, getting other people involved. There's no new fishermen because of the permit process.
Yeah.
New York State, for whatever reason, this does not support fishermen as other states do, New Jersey, North Carolina, you know, fishermen is part of their shrimping down south, you know, that's their identity, some of these coastal states. Look at New York, you know, how much coastal we have.
Right. Yes.
You know, what did New York do for us, promoting this stuff?
Why has it gone down rather than, you know?
There's no option for this fish.
A lot of us in politics on it. It seems like it seems like other states are just spending more money on it. And they kind of corner the market, and New York's gotten a little bit squeezed out. Lance, you guys, again, I'm sorry, I don't want to get too loud here, but you know, I started out in profit 20 years ago to address environment and detection of cancer. And I around my kitchen table, my dining room tables. And that's what you guys, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm a legislator now, but we need to hear from you, and that's when you get your power. These are both voices, just like, you know, the more fish, the larger, you know, the better. So
Thank you.
I would just have to work with you guys.
How about, we're gonna have our networking session, we're gonna tie this up and move along, and please stay and I urge the fishermen to talk to our legislators that are here. The vessel technology, maybe, you know, the legislators don't know that the vessels that the commercial fishing industry work on here are, what do we say, guys? The average age of the vessels are like 30 years? 30 years old. You know what I mean? They're refitting old vessels. They're not, you know, building commercial fishing boats.
We got like a third world boats.
Right, like Norway, I mean, they have state-of-the-art vessels. So, you know, so these are some of the things, you know, that guys do, okay? So they, you know, we have Malcolm from Montauk, he puts stabilizer wings on his vessel to instead of the outriggers. You know, this is putting airplane wings on a vessel to, you know, keep the stability and reduce the weight up on top for safety and the investment to do so. It's also reducing the draft, and he is getting better. You're keeping the same speed, and that's better for fuel.
It's about saving fuel once again,
Right.
as well as the other things you mentioned.
Right. Some people put big tanks in their vessels, you know, high volume squid to, you know, also. That's the way that they store the fish on the vessels. Right here in New York, commercial fishermen box their fish. Okay, every fish they catch is sold and packed in a box and shipped into New York City. There's nothing pumped out, there's nothing lumped out, it's, you know, it's pretty much put in the box. Well, how do they do your lobsters over there? Crates.
Yeah, and finally, safety innovations. The technology for safety gear has changed dramatically in the past 10 years, if not 5 years. Most of you are familiar with what's up on the screen. You have a PLB in the top left, low profile, PFD, a lot of acronyms here, an EPIRB, emergency position indicator, response beacon, and a life raft. You know, fishermen most of the time they're mandated to keep some of this gear on. Some fishermen choose to have additional. So what has your experience been with the safety equipment that you're either mandated to have on board or that you choose to bring with you when you go offshore or inshore?
Well, I mean, I have my boots, so I don't know.
Right. But this also goes at a cost, you know what I mean?
If you could.
The legislators, how much is the life raft, guys, you know, on the boat?
Life jacket is definitely,
Right.
makes a big difference when
Oh, yeah.
it can be made.
And survival suits.
How much is the life raft, Mike?
$4,000.
$4,000, and then you have to get that repacked, inspected,
Depends on what size and stuff.
right?
$4,000 to $10,000.
These things expire.
Yes, expired.
Expired, it has to reflect, yeah.
Pay for that, yeah.
Flares expire. I mean, the biggest thing is making sure that not only do you have this equipment, but that you're inspecting it annually to make sure that it's in good shape and replacing it often.
Right.
Yeah, those inspections cost hundreds of dollars. We just had a life raft replaced for us and it was hundreds of dollars. And
And hopefully you never had to use it. So you're
yeah.
completely brand new product.
As that.
Yeah.
No.
No trouble. Yeah.
All right, wrapping it up. Overall, innovations in commercial fishing are helping to make the industry more sustainable, efficient, and responsible. By embracing new technologies and practices, commercial fishermen can help to ensure that fish populations are protected for future generations. Any questions? No. Thank you. You want this?
All right, everybody, just a couple more things before we get some snacks in. I do want to bring up and introduce, Design, which is small business development center at Silver. They do provide many services and opportunities for businesses across New York, including our fishing businesses. If you're going to talk about some of those services a little bit, you know,
Thank you. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, public discussion, for this opportunity. My name is Brenda Brown. I'm a certified business advisor from SPDC Clinical. The SPDC stands for Small Business Development Center. So the Stony Brook location is one of the 22 regional centers in New York State. Each center is funded by the federal SBA, the Small Business Administration, New York State, and the host institution, which is Stony Brook University in our case. So our work is to offer free and confidential counseling service for local small business. Right now, in our center, we have 8 business advisors specializing in different areas. For example, myself is a New York State CPA, and we also have advisor specialized in marketing, social media, including the social media marketing, and also the manufacturing, the government certification, like the women and minority-owned business certification, and also the business law education. For example, in your case, if you want to purchase a new vehicle, or if you want to invest in high-value equipment, you may want to consider to apply for an SBA loan. In that case, we can assist to develop a business plan for you. So I have the SPDC flyers and also my business card in the back. Please feel free to grab one and contact us if you need any assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. And we want to quickly thank everybody for being here, the participation, the active engagement. That's why we started this. Thank you for doing that. And lastly, we want to open up for some closing remarks from Legislator Rich Bird. He's on the phone real quick. Any questions for any of our speakers, Sea Grant, Cornell, while we get the legislator over? All right, well, we look forward to mingling and enjoying our lovely oysters and monkfish shortly. And feel free to take any of the resources in the map and have fun with them. All right, let's do it for.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? Been practicing my loud quick feet. I know folks, I know you sat in these meetings and I think this was a great presentation. I learned more about monkfish in about 2 hours than I ever thought I'd ever know. Now I'm sent out, I have to go buy some monkfish from somewhere. But I want to thank you all for everything that you're doing. And I know there was a lot of conversation about what government does and what government doesn't do. So Cornell Cooperative Extension is a county funded agency. So when you're talking about while it doesn't say Suffolk County on it, county government does a really bad job of saying what we do and what we don't do. So sometimes when you see these folks walking around, you know, they're helping out with the oyster farming and all that other stuff. That's stuff that's done with county dollars. I will also say that we've heard you, and my colleague Sarah Anker is here. We heard you about we're trying to figure out ways to do a distribution. I was sitting on my phone texting and sending messages to folks. I'm sure Sarah was doing the same thing. You're trying to figure out how we can find answers. I can't promise you we'll find an answer, but I can promise you that we're working on a way to do it. I would love, and I'm sure my colleague, we're in Al Krupski's house. I want to thank him for allowing me to be here, but I would love for an opportunity for us to sit down and have a conversation about what strategies could work. How big of a facility are you looking for? Because there are opportunities, you know, I know it's a little, it's faux pas, go Western Suffolk up island, but there are places in Western Suffolk where, you know, we have industrial areas that could be an opportunity, right? And so if maybe it's working with either our Suffolk County IDA or some of our town IDAs, we'll figure out what works best and figure out how we can. The other thing is to make sure that you folks as fishermen, right, as those who are the stakeholders in this network, have a better input and a say. So if that's getting you all to come together, and so I don't want to say a union, but like a union-esque idea, so that you all would have ownership of that distribution center, whether that's creating a business entity or a nonprofit entity that works with you all, whatever that is, and I'm just sort of spitting off the top of my head, Because I think those are things that have worked in the past in other places, just doing my quick little phone research. I think if we can help facilitate that, and the other thing I'll say is, you know, we as your county legislators, while we're not state legislators, and I don't want to speak too long, because I know elected officials do that. We can be your advocates, right? So if you're saying that you feel that, you know, the fishing industry is not heard, call me, call Sarah, call Al. Hey, how can we do this, and this? You know, we have local state elected officials here as well. You know, you had Anthony Colombo here, you had Fred Steele here. Let's have those conversations with them and us, let's do it together. So then we can say, how can we change that? You know, are we saying, is it Fish and Wildlife? Is it DEC? Is it the Fed? Whoever, how can we work to advocate best for you? You know, the best thing about having all 18 legislators here or around is that we are your chief advocates for your community. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank Cornell Cooperative Extension. I'm waiting for my monk chowder and an oyster. But I will also say that, you know, as a guy from the West End, it's great to come out and see small business out here, because you are more than 50% of our county. You guys hire our community members, you sell in our local neighborhoods. This is why this is important. And so that's why I wanted to make sure I came out here. And that's why I'm sure my colleagues came out as well. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're almost done. But up next, we'll have our networking session, and we have New York Sea Grant, the Cornell Fisheries team, the local legislators in attendance, our presenters, and all the industry members here today to talk with each other during the networking session. This is an opportunity for all of us to get to know each other and talk about our work and businesses, share the resources, and highlight any opportunities. So we have tables set up in the back with our materials, and let's enjoy some monkfish chowder from Gray Bar Seafood in Copiague and delicious oysters from Great Gun Shellfish. Thank you guys for coming today to provide the food. And please remember that we do heavily rely on volunteer support and donations and external funding to support the summit activities. So if you are able, we encourage participants to show their support for the summit and keep it going for years to come by donating, and any amount helps. Donations can be made online at the Seafood Summit website. So thank you, if possible. All right, last thing, thank you everyone for attending today. I know sometimes it's not easy to get all of these people in a room, especially if it's a nice day and a Friday during Lent to get any seafood businesses here. We appreciate it. We know it's not easy. We hope that you have new knowledge and insight into the innovative commercial fishing industry here on Long Island. We hope you're inspired to choose more New York harvested fish, and that you benefited by meeting so many members of this industry and talking together. So thank you so much to the planning team for all the work that went into this successful event. Thank you, Gray Bar, for the chowder. Thank you, Great Gun, for the oysters. Thank you to the presenters for all the informative discussions. We enjoyed meeting you, learning more about you, and we hope to see you all again at a future summit event. Thank you.